What's up, everybody? Welcome back. In this episode of Learning GoLang, we're going to be talking about output functions. Specifically, what are output functions in GoLang, the common types of output functions, and we're going to finish it off with some examples of output functions in GoLang. So let's go ahead and get started. Look forward to seeing you in there. What exactly are GoLang output functions? GoLang output functions allow you to output data from your program. When we say output in coding, we typically mean to display it either on a screen, printer, or in a separate file. Output functions are really helpful when it comes to debugging. You can use them to figure out what's going on in your code that's causing a bug. What does the value look like? Is it something else from what you're expecting? There are many different use cases that you can use output functions for other than printing something to the screen. Now, let's talk about some of the most common output functions available to us in GoLang. In GoLang, some of the most common output functions are print, Println, Printf, and Sprintf. We'll talk about what each of these means later on. Now, let's go over each of these output functions a little bit more in depth, just so we can get a better understanding about what each one does and the advantages you may have over using one over the other. The print function is the simplest of output functions in GoLang. It takes in arguments and prints out values in their default format. Nothing more, nothing less. Let's take a look at a quick code example. So here we are in our simple GoLang file. We have our function already set up. We've already imported the needed package, the FMT package, which houses all of our basic output functions. And you can see here we already declared a variable. 3 string variables called hello world cam. So when we run this program, we should expect the output to be something as hello world cam with all of the words put together, since the print function does not do any special formatting or anything like that. It just prints out the default values. So let's go ahead and run this by doing go run hello world go in my case, and let's see what we get. And you can see we get everything as we said. Hello world cam is the output. In the case of the print function, since it does not add any special formatting around your variables when you attempt to output their values, you may have to do some manual things yourself, such as adding in spaces or new lines. Let's take a look back into the code. So here we are where we left off, and you can see that we added in a new print statement. So let's say we wanted this output to actually contain spaces so it's actually readable and it's not all jumbled up together. So in the print statement, since none of the formatting is applied automatically, we have to manually add spaces where we see fit. So in this case, we need to add a space here, add a comma, and add another space here and another comma to get the desired output that we need. So let me comment out this original print statement, and let's rerun our go run hello world. And we should expect our values to be separated with the space. And you can see here our values are now separated with the space because we manually added in spaces in between each of the variables. Well, what if we want to print these words each on their own separate line? How can we do that? Well, that's possible as well. So, see, we have another new print statement copied from our original print statement. And instead of just adding in spaces, we're going to replace that empty space with the new line character. This is something I haven't had the chance to go over yet, but it is simply a backslash and the letter N to signify new line. So now when we comment out this original function or original print statement and try to run our program again, we should expect each of the values hello world cam to render each on their own separate line. So let's go ahead and see how that works. And you can see here hello world cam all printed on their own separate lines. Now that you've seen how the print statement actually works, you're probably thinking to yourself, man, it's going to be really annoying if I have to manually update or add spaces or new line characters to my output functions every time. Well, there is another output function that comes to the rescue. and that output function's name is Println. The Println statement is very similar to the print statement. However, the Println statement automatically adds spaces in between each of its arguments, and it also adds a new line at the end of each Println statement. So we don't have to worry about manually typing in spaces and new line characters like we have to do with the print statement. Pretty cool, right? Let's take a quick look at an example in the code. So you can see here, we commented out our previous example using the print statement where we manually added in spaces and new line characters. You can see here, Println is still coming from the same FMT package that we imported at the beginning of the code. And all we did was just supply it with 3 arguments, the same variables that we've been using all of this video. So we simply run this program. Let's clear out what we had previously in the terminal, and let's rerun this program and let's see what we get. So now you can see here, it automatically added in spaces in between each of the arguments that we supplied. So we don't have to manually do this every time, we want to format our outputs. The printf output statement in GoLang is very similar to the print statement. However, it allows us to print formatted data to the screen. It takes in 2 arguments, a template string, which contains the string, of course, and a formatting verb, which tells the output function how to format the data, and of course the regular arguments that we would normally pass into our print statement. Let's take a look at an example in the code. So you can see here we declared a new variable with a value is awesome. And below that, we're calling the printf statement again from the FNT package that we imported at the top of the file. And we're supplying it with a template string, GoLang, and the formatting verb s. In this case, this is for formatting string values, but there are plenty other formatting verbs that you can use that we're going to show later on in the video. And we're supplying it an argument myString. So we're expecting the output should be GoLang is awesome when we run this code. So let's go ahead and test this out. Let's clear out the console of our previous example and let's go ahead and rerun this. And you can see GoLang is awesome was printed to the screen. In GoLang, there are many different formatting verbs that you can use depending on your use case. We've already seen the string use case. There is a Boolean formatter, integer formatter, a floating point formatter, type formatter. There are so many different formatting verbs that you can use, and we're going to cover a few in the next example. Now let's look at the code for some examples. Well, earlier you've seen that we've already used the string formatting verb, which is %s. The next case that we have is an integer, and you can see that the formatting verb is %d, and we're expecting the value that's output to the screen is today is the 8th. The next one that we have is the float or decimal, which uses %g. And the same thing that we're expecting output, it is just the value. Next one that we have is Boolean, which uses %t. And lastly, we have the type, which uses %t. So in this case, it just tells us the type of the argument that we pass in, which in this case will be string. So if we run this code, you should expect to see everything that we saw before. So GoLang is awesome, the string one. Today is the 8th, that is the integer, floating point, decimal, Boolean, and the type. You can see here that it is a string like we said earlier. The last output function that we're going to discuss today is called the Sprintf function. The Sprintf function is very similar to the printf function, with the only difference really being that the Sprintf function returns a string value compared to what the printf function returns. So that means you can use the Sprintf function not only to output to the console, but you can also use it actually in your code to store a formatted string. Let's take a look at the Sprintf function in a code example. So you can see here, we started off by declaring 2 new variables, my collection, which is a string, and apples, which is a integer. And you can see that we are storing our return value from Sprintf into a variable called text. And you can see here, even if we highlight over Sprintf, you can see that this function returns a string value. So it's going to format our string accordingly, and we can use that value later on in our code if we see fit. So all we're doing right here is saying in my collection, I have 5 apples. And we're adding a new line just so it can look a little neat. And we're passing it in the 2 variables like the same thing that we would do in our printf statement like we done before. And you can see here we're just passing it into a printf statement so we can see it on the screen. So we're saying the value stored in text is and it's just going to print out what we have here. So let's go ahead and clear out our console. And let's rerun this program. And you can see here, value stored in text is, in my collection, I have 5 apples. Pretty cool, right? I hope this overview on output functions in GoLang has been helpful for you. If it has, don't forget to like and subscribe. Even if it wasn't, leave a comment and like and subscribe. More videos coming soon, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.